My name is Lilian Groves, and I've been guiding here for 30 years. In the Galilee Chapel, you will find a tomb on which is written, Hac sunt in fossa, Bede venerabilis ossa. This is an old monkish rhyme, and loosely translated means, in this grave lie the bones of the worthy Bede. Cuthbert is the much-loved saint of the north. Bede belongs to the whole world. If you go, well, from continent to continent, you'll see churches, colleges, schools named for Bede. Bede was a remarkable man. He was very local in a way. He was born less than 10 miles from Durham. He was born in the place where Sunderland now stands. His most famous book is the Ecclesiastical History of the English People. And at the end of that, he has a very modest autobiography. He says, I was born on the lands of this monastery. When he was 7, his parents took him to the monastery at Wearmouth to be educated by Benedict Biscop. When he was 9, he went to the New Twin Monastery at Jarrow. He never went further from home than twice up to Lindisfarne and once down to York, and yet he became the greatest scholar of the early Middle Ages. Generations of monks were educated on his writings on the scriptures. He is the only Englishman to be called a doctor of the church. That is, one of the greatest theologians. He's called the father of English history, largely because of the ecclesiastical history of the English people, but he also wrote many other books, history books, including 2 lives of Cuthbert, one in poetry and one in prose. It's from the writings of Bede that we know about Cuthbert, that we know about Oswald, Hild, and all the other saints. Some of you will remember Patrick Moore, who used to present The Sky at Night on television. He said Bede was the first English astronomer. This was because at a time when everybody thought the world was flat, he said the world isn't flat, it's like a shield. Not like a shield, but like a ball. He was anxious that the people should be able to worship in their own language. You see, the people's language was Anglo-Saxon, the people of Northumbria. Bede's native language was Anglo-Saxon, but the language of the church was Latin. Bede translated the Lord's Prayer and the Creed into Anglo-Saxon, and for that, some people called him a heretic. Even as he was dying, he was translating the Gospel according to St. John from Latin into Anglo-Saxon, Old English, the people's language. In his book, The Ecclesiastical History of the English People, it was Bede who introduced to the Western world the idea of dating AD, Anno Domini, after the Lord. And it's only 2020 because of Bede. When you hang up your calendar on January the 1st, think of Bede. He wrote some very famous scientific documents all about time. The reason he was interested in time was because there wasn't a calendar in order to work out the date of Easter. It was Bede that worked that out. So he was an amazing, amazing scholar. Bede died on Wednesday, the 25th of May, 735. And he was buried where he'd lived all his life, in Jarrow. But in the year 1022, when there was an Anglo-Saxon cathedral here, we had a man called Alfred Westover as the sacrist, the keeper of Cuthbert Shrine. He had been able to identify all the places where the northern saints were buried. And so he started to collect some of those relics. But the ones he wanted most of all were those of Bede. He used to go every year on the anniversary of Bede's death to pray at Bede's tomb, or what had been Bede's tomb before the Vikings destroyed it. But one year, 1022, he went and prayed and then left early in the morning, not wanting anyone to know what he'd done. What he'd done was steal Bede's bones, and he brought them back to Durham. The former Dean of Durham said, "Saint and scholar together gather up the prayers of the people." So it's good that at each end of the cathedral, the tomb into which Bede was placed in the 14th century wasn't this one. That was destroyed in the Reformation, along with Cuthbert's. And Bede was placed in a very plain grave. Now, in the 19th century, a man called James Raine, the cathedral librarian, was very interested in opening the graves of all the medieval people buried in this cathedral. He opened Cuthbert Shrine in 1827. He opened Bede Shrine in 1831. And it is James Raine who tells us that he put on Bede's tomb an old monkish rhyme, Hac sunt and fossa, Bede venerabis ossa.